Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and in today's video, I have my top 25 prepped and ready to go for you guys. I have timestamps for every single team ready to go, so if you want to skip around in the video to your favorite team, a team that you are very excited about, go ahead and do so. I don't care which way at all. Real quick, this is not a projection to the end of the season. This is how I have them ranked right now as is. All right, we have no time to waste. Let's just get right into it. Kicking things off here with number 25, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes. Kirk Ferentz is the longest tenured head coach in college football right now, with 27 years under his belt at Iowa. Certainly a great achievement for him. Looking at the roster this year, at quarterback, it could be Jeremy Helinski or it could be Hank Brown. We don't know. Either way, I think it's going to be a pretty big downgrade from what they had last year in Mark Gronowski. Mark Gronowski was actually really good last year. If you looked at the stats and the film for what Iowa runs, he was a great quarterback. They do bring back Kamari Moulton, that running back who ran for just under 900 yards last season on the ground. So he is a key piece that they retained. This offensive line was a Joe Moore Award winning finalist, and they bring back multiple starters from last year. And on the defensive side of the ball, they bring back one of their top tacklers in Jaden Montgomery. They bring back Dejon Lee at corner, and they bring back Zach Lutmer at free safety. So again, this team, they know how to win. They've been doing it for a long time, and I can see that trend continuing here. Next up here at 24, I got the Florida Gators here. I think that this team is going to surprise some people for having a first-year head coach in John Summerall. I really liked that hire, and the tandem they have with the running backs and the wide receivers is really good. One of the top ones in the country when you combine what they have. They have Jaden Ball coming back at running back. They paid him a lot to come back come back out of the transfer portal this past offseason, and he did so, and he's going to produce. I mean, he did amazing last season, running for over 1,100 yards last season. And they bring back Vernell Brown III, Dallas Wilson, and they bring in Eric Singleton Jr. via the transfer portal, one of the top receivers in the portal from Georgia Tech. Now, at quarterback, I think that this is probably one of the weaker points of the roster, as Aaron Philo will probably start for them. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I just don't know much about him, and I don't think anyone really knows much about him and his game quite yet. And we're going to have to wait for the season to play themselves out for that one. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back a couple linebackers in Miles Graham and Jaden Robinson. They bring back a couple corners in Cormami McClain, actually one corner there, and they bring back a key piece in the secondary, which is Bryce Thornton at strong safety. So I think these Gators are going to be a very hard team to stop, especially with John Summerall as their head coach. At number 23, and I may be undervaluing them a little bit, it's the Louisville Cardinals. I think that they have the roster and the makeup for a run at an ACC title and a possible college football playoff berth. They bring in Lincoln Kienholz at quarterback. I'm not sold on him. That's why I have Louisville a little bit lower than really I should have them. If they had Miller Moss from last year, or they brought in a better transfer, I think that they are in the top 20 very easily, but I'm not sold on Lincoln Kienholz quite yet. They bring back one of the best running backs in the country, and Isaac Brown. The home run hit ability is just crazy. He's one of the best out there when it comes to speed and just chunk plays from the running back position. They bring back guys like Trey Richardson, Brody Foley. Brody Foley, I think, is one of the best tight ends in the country. They bring back a very solid offensive line, and a guy like Chev Lubin from the defensive end spot is very good as well. They bring back their entire linebacker core as well. So a lot of returning players. Jeff Brom is one of the best head coaches in the country, in my opinion. He's probably top 15, even. I'm not going to say top 10 quite yet, but he's definitely a top 15 head coach in the country. He was like that when he was at Purdue. He's like that still with Louisville. And I think that Louisville has a very good season headed in store for them as long as Lincoln Kienholz can pan out for him. At 22, I have the Houston Cougars. Houston has been one of the sexier picks to be a top 20 team. I'm not quite ready to pull them into the top 20 quite yet, but Willie Fritz, I think, has assembled his best team that he's ever had at Houston. Connor Wegman returns for them. That was huge for them. Him being good last year was huge, as he didn't pan out at Texas A&M. He comes in and just immediately takes over. Great starting quarterback for them, and will continue to be a great one for them as well. They bring back receiver Amari Thomas. They bring back a couple offensive linemen from last year, and they bring back a bunch of guys on the defensive side of the ball, particularly from the secondary in Kentrell Webb, Jordan Allen, and Will James, to name a few. And I think that this schedule lines up pretty darn well for them. And I think that they placed top 50 nationally in defense, top 50 nationally in offense as well last year. And they went 10-3 last year. Like, I think that they have very quietly, they went 10-3. So I think that this year they have another of that type of season. And I think that Willie Fritz continues to build momentum. Coming in at 21 here, I have the Missouri Tigers. They're a team that's very up in the air. Some people have them higher, some people have them lower. I have them here at 21. Eli Drinkwitz is one of the better head coaches in college football, and assuming that Ahmad Hardy is fully healthy at running back, prayers up to him for what happened to him. I think that he is the best running back in the country by far. They bring in Austin Simmons at quarterback, who I think is going to be a lot better than Bo Pribula was. I feel like he's going to be what people expected Bo Pribula to be. And they bring in Caden Lee as well from Ole Miss. So they bring in two Ole Miss guys at quarterback and wide receiver. They're both going to start. They're both going to be very good, in my opinion. The defense, it's replacing a lot of starters with guys that did not play as much last year, but they also bring in a couple key transfers in Robert Woodyard, Jaleel Florence, and Elijah Dotson as well. They bring in a lot of transfers just to kind of supplement the two deep for them. But overall, as long as they stay healthy and as long as they continue to stay healthy, I think that Missouri is in a good situation to win a fair amount of games this season. At 20, I have the SMU Mustangs. They have one of the best head coaches in the country in Rhett Lashley. Ever since coming to the ACC, the last 2 years they've been in the ACC, which was their first 2 years in the ACC, they've won 19 games in total. 10 in 2024 when they made the college football playoff, and 9 last year. A measly 9 wins for the SMU Mustangs. They bring back their quarterback that has been with them for the past 2 years, Kevin Jennings. He continues to improve and continues to impress, and they bring back their whole linebacker core. They bring back a lot of their offensive line. I think that they're going to be a team to watch for in the ACC. I don't think they're necessarily going to win it, but they're going to have a lot of fun this season, especially with Kevin Jennings. I think he unlocks his full potential this year. Coming in at 19, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. They get Matt Campbell from Iowa State to come over. Very solid fundamentals head coach, very passionate, down to the details type of guy. Won a lot at Iowa State, and he brought his quarterback over with him as well, Rocco Becht. Very good when he's on the field, but he was playing on multiple concussions last year and just had surgery to replace a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. So we'll see how these injuries play out. We had Garrett Nussmeier last year, who was very hyped quarterback last year, and had injury concerns in the off season and in from spring to summer ball, had some injury concerns. Everyone thought nothing of it. It turns out that he was playing injured pretty much the whole season, and that impacted LSU tremendously. I hope that does not happen with Penn State, but it's something to look out for. They bring in a couple guys at running back in Carson Hansen and Brett Exleden. I'm going to just leave it at that. I probably did not pronounce that right, but Carson Hansen is the guy you want to watch out for, especially when they replace two guys in Nick Singleton and Katrin Allen, who had so much production for Penn State last year. Everything is just kind of Iowa State. They bring in a lot of guys from Iowa State on the offensive line, wide receiver, on the defensive line as well. So again, we're going to have to see how this team plays out. I see it as Iowa State 2.0 plus Tony Rojas and Zion Tracy. At 18, I have the Utah Utes. They just went through a big coaching change as Kyle Whittingham, longtime head coach of the Utes, left to go to Michigan. Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator, becomes the head coach for them. And if you knew anything about the program, you knew that Scalley was going to replace Whittingham whenever he inevitably retired or moved on to a different program. Now, when it comes to this team, a lot of moving parts, a lot of players left for the draft, including two offensive linemen who were selected in the first round, Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, and a couple players went to Michigan with Kyle Whittingham, but two names you need to keep an eye on. Devin Dampier, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion, extremely slept on. He is a guy who is top 10 in the country right now, in my opinion, as he accounted for 34 total touchdowns and he only threw 5 interceptions. They bring back Wayshawn Parker as well, who ran for just under 1,000 rushing yards. Those guys in the backfield are going to be elite. And one more guy on the offense that I want you guys to keep an eye out for is Kelvin Obot, the 5-star offensive tackle that comes in with the 2026 class, and he's going to be elite for this team as a true freshman, as a consensus 5-star going to Utah. On the defense, again, a lot of moving parts, but they bring back a linebacker in Jonathan Hall. They bring back a couple corners in Jackson Bene and Elijah Davis. So we figure Utah to be a player in the Big 12 and to be power rated very high. Next up here at 17, I have the Washington Huskies. This is Jed Fish's year. I know that they lost a lot from last season, particularly with guys like Denzel Boston, Jonah Coleman leaving, but they bring back Damon Williams Jr. after his whole fiasco with the transfer portal. He comes back. He is one of the top quarterbacks in America, in my opinion. He's probably top 15 quarterback in America easily, and he is a guy who runs the ball extremely well, had over 600 yards rushing last season just as a quarterback, which is amazing, and then obviously throws the ball at an elite level. He just needs to bring down the interception totals. Jaden Lamar comes in at running back. I think he'll be very solid. They need these wide receivers to be good. For this team to succeed, they need to have the same kind of production they had last year with guys like Denzel Boston. Now, they do bring back Desmond Roebuck from last year, who should help anchor that room, but also guys like Christian Moss and Rashid Williams need to produce for them. They bring back Decker DeGraff at tight end, one of the better tight ends in the country, and their offensive line brings back 3 starters from last season. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back some guys who are high-impact guys like Jacob Lane, who led the team in sacks and TFLs last season, and they bring back Alex McLaughlin, the safety who led the team in tackles. Again, on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of transition, but they retain a couple guys that have real splash play potential, and they've already produced, which I like, and I think that Washington's going to have a great year. Next up, I have everyone's favorite offseason team, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Assuming that Brendan Sorsby does not play, I have this team ranked a little bit lower because of Will Hammond. If they would have trusted Will Hammond already, they would not have gone out and got such a high-impact starter at quarterback like Brendan Sorsby. They would have stuck with Will Hammond, yet they've had him on the team for 3 years as a backup, and they still seem to not trust him. And also, he's going through a little bit of injury trouble himself. So I think that's the one really dark spot on the roster, even excluding Brendan Sorsby. Okay, everywhere else on the roster, though, this has the makings of a championship team. They bring back their top 2 running backs in Jacoby Williams and Cam Dickey. At wide receiver, they're loaded with Micah Hudson leading that room. At tight end, they have Terrence Carter Jr. returning, top 3 tight end in the country, and they bring back 3 starting offensive linemen. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring in through the portal Mateen Ibarogwa. I hope that I pronounced that right. Trey White as well, Austin Romine as well at linebacker, one of the best linebacker transfers in the portal by far out of K-State. They bring back guys like John Curry, Ben Roberts, AJ Holmes Jr., Bryce Pollock, and Brendan Jordan as well. So this team, and they bring back, by the way, their starting kicker. So this team, they are ready to succeed. I just don't think that they have the player at quarterback that they need to make like a deep run in the playoffs, but they're still going to be a very fun team to watch. Don't get me wrong. At 15 here, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, I know it's a sexy pick to say, oh, the Tide's not going to be good this year and rank them like 22nd or something like that, but y'all don't get the picture. Y'all don't see the roster. Their defense is stacked, particularly in the secondary when they bring back Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, Zabian Brown, who figures to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. Yohanze Pierre comes back at linebacker. He's an emerging star, probably going to be a top pick in the NFL draft as well. On the offensive side of the ball, yes, a lot of moving parts. I'm worried about their offensive line, but when you look at the quarterback room, I think Austin Mack is going to struggle. I don't really believe in Austin Mack as much as I do with Keelan Russell. I think Keelan Russell is the real deal at quarterback. I think that he is going to be a generational type of prospect, a generational type of player in college football once he actually takes over the starting job for them. Ryan Coleman Williams comes back again. I'm not super impressed by him at all. Drop City, very unreliable, but there's always room for growth. I mean, at this point, you're not really relying on him too much anyway. You're just like, okay, if he can produce somewhat, that's a bonus. So that's how we're feeling with Ryan Coleman Williams. Again, the offensive line, a bit of a question mark, but we'll see how they can come out of it. And again, their schedule plays to their advantage as they play probably the worst teams in the SEC first, like South Carolina, Mississippi State, and then you get into the teeth of the schedule with Georgia, Tennessee, Texas A&M, etc. So I think the Alabama Crimson Tide are going to be decent this year as long as they stay injury free, in my opinion. Next up here, I have the BYU Cougars, and I think that they are the best team in the Big 12, in my opinion, by a decent bit. I think that they are definitely better than Texas Tech. They're going to be more exciting. They're going to be way more juiced. They have that very exciting game at home against Notre Dame to really have that litmus test. Kalani Sitake is a top 10 head coach. I think unanimously. I mean, if you ask me, he's a top 7 head coach. He is one of the best head coaches in the country as he's done the most with what he has. I mean, he has not had very much, let's face it, but the Mormons are giving him more and more money as he is able to retain LJ Martin, who is a top 3 running back in the country. Bear Bachmeyer comes back, who was slinging the rock last year really well as a true freshman, wearing that 47 number. I love it. Little bit of a question mark at wide receiver. JoJo Phillips figures to be the number 1 guy, but we'll see. They retain a couple guys on the offensive line, and they retain almost everyone on the defense. I mean, the defense is going to be stacked. The defense, in my opinion, is better than Texas Tech's defense, and they're going to be way more exciting on offense than what Texas Tech is going to be. Not to compare them to one team, but I think that they're both very similar teams. And I really do believe that BYU is going to be one of the best teams in the Big 12 and be a title contender there in the Big 12. At the 13th spot, I have the Texas A&M Aggies. I think that Mike Elko is a top 10 head coach in the nation very easily. He's a fantastic coach. I have my doubts about Marcel Reed, but when he plays to his potential, like when we saw him go into Death Valley and just throttle the LSU Tigers last season, that was a very big accomplishment. And I think that if he has more of that in him than his college football playoff performance, I think that he is going to be a very solid quarterback. Ruben Owens II is their running back. I think he's going to be very solid as well. Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel Roman come back at wide receiver. Plus, they bring in Isaiah Horton, so they're passing attack should be pretty fun to watch, to be honest with you. Offensive line, a lot of turnover there, so we'll see how that pans out, but they do bring back their center in Mark Nabin Jr. On the defense, they lose a lot on the defensive front, but what they do bring back is TJ Searcy at the defensive end spot, so that's going to be huge for them. At linebacker, they bring back Damon Sanford as well. He was a very solid player for them last year. And Des Ricks comes back at corner. Plus, they retain their 2 safeties in Dalton Brooks and Marcus Radcliffe. This team, I think, is ready for more success, and I think this team has the potential to win a playoff game. Next up here, I have the Ole Miss Rebels coming in at number 12. I think that Pete Golding is a very underrated head coach, in my opinion. I think that he is a just nose to the football type of guy. He's all talk. He's all ball, not as much talk. That's what I meant to say. Okay, I think that this team, it has the best chance of going to and just making a CFP run out of every team that we've talked about so far. Trinidad Chambliss is my Heisman favorite entering the season. Kawan Lacey is my Doak Walker Award winner. I haven't put that out yet, but if you guys want me to make a video on that, I definitely can. Kawan Lacey, one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best. They bring back Deuce Alexander, and they bring back just a ton on the offensive line. They bring back their whole interior in Patrick Kutas, Bryson Sanders, and Delano Townsend. So that's very rare for a team that lost their head coach to bring back three core members of their offensive line, but they were able to do that. And they bring in a tackle from LSU and Carius Kern, who is one of the best tackles, was one of the best tackles in the transfer portal. And on the defensive side of the ball, they bring back a ton of guys. Cam Franklin and Will Eccles from the defensive line. They were amazing for them last year. Sertain Perkins, the linebacker edge hybrid outside linebacker, he figures to be huge for them. Luke Farrelly, he transfers in from Clemson, and he is a fantastic ball player, in my opinion. They bring back Antonio Kite and Jalen Braxton from the secondary as well, and they also retain both their special teams players. So I think that this team is just ready to make a CFP run. They just have to outlast a very tough schedule. At number 11 here, I have the Michigan Wolverines. Now, I think that they made a fantastic head coaching hire in Kyle Whittingham after effectively firing the previous guy. And they were able to retain a ton of guys. They brought in a ton of guys as well. So let's talk about them. Bryce Underwood, I honestly would have Michigan higher, but they have Bryce Underwood. Again, he is a generational talent, but he just has not shown it. And from reports in from spring ball, really hasn't been the type of guy that they want him to be quite yet. So we'll see how summer ball goes and obviously the season. But Bryce Underwood, there is a little bit of concern there, although he has the tools to be a top 5 quarterback in the country. They bring back Jordan Marshall at running back and Andrew Marsh at wide receiver. Those guys figure to be huge guys. They bring in Jamie French from Texas, I believe, in the transfer portal. They bring back a ton of offensive linemen. They bring back their top 4 offensive linemen, which is huge for them. On the defensive side of the ball, little bit of a turnover there, but they bring back key guys in the secondary in Zeke Berry and Jair Hill. So again, quarterback pending. The quarterback play, it either will land them a top 5 rating by the end of the season, or a 25-20 rating by the end of the season. Only time will tell. At number 10, I have Oklahoma. Now, a lot of people have been kind of sleeping on Oklahoma a bit, but they do bring back John Mateer, who at times was a Heisman-worthy quarterback, although I need to see him play way more consistently than he did last year. Isaiah Satania III comes back, and he is a difference maker at wide receiver with his speed. Parker Livingston transfers in from rival Texas, and they bring back a couple guys on the offensive line, particularly a guy in Michael Fasusi, who was a 5-star coming out of high school and a consensus 5-star at that. So I think their offense is poised to continue to be a very good offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, they bring back a lot of their secondary. They bring back a lot of their outside backers as well. And they bring back just a lot of their playmakers from last year, like Kip Lewis, who led the team in tackles. Tyler Wine, who led the team in TFLs. They bring back a lot of difference makers, which is huge in the SEC. At number 9, I have the USC Trojans. And let me preface this by saying this has to be Lincoln Riley's year. Lincoln Riley has had a lot of talented rosters. I think that this is the most talented roster and the most complete roster that he has ever had at USC. Actually, I take that back. I think this is the best roster, period, that he's ever had in terms of its depth, its talent, and its experience. And you got to start a quarterback. Jaden Mayava, at his peak, I think he is a Heisman finalist, but dare I even say a Heisman winner? We might have to find out. At running back, they bring back both their guys in Wayman Jordan and King Miller, who were both dogs last year. At wide receiver, this is the only part of the offense where they lose any sort of production. So they need to step up. Guys like Tanook Hines, Trent Mosley, the transfer in Terrell Anderson, they need to step up. The 5-star tight end, Mark Bowman, they paid an absurd amount of money for him. He needs to produce, and he looks the part for sure. Offensive line, they bring back everyone on the offensive line. All 5 starters from last year, they bring back all of them. Great sign there. On defense, they bring back a lot of their splash players, like Camarion Crawford on the defensive line. He led the team in TFLs and sacks last season. They bring back their leading tackler in Desmond Stevens II. In the secondary, they bring back players such as Marcellus Williams, Christian Pierce, and Kennedy Urlacher. This team is built for success. Let's see if Lincoln Riley can actually do it. All right, at number 8, I have the LSU Tigers and everyone's favorite head coach, Lane Kiffin. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Lane is he's not an elite head coach quite yet, but I think he's assembled way too good of a roster for it to not be a top 10 team. And you look at what they brought in. Obviously, Sam Levitt, and as far as I know, he did not bet on his team when he was at Arizona State. Could be wrong on that, but I don't think he did. But you look at all the other transfers that Lane Kiffin brought in Harlan Berry, one of the best running backs in the portal by far. Trey Green, a top 3 tight end in America. Jordan Seaton, one of the best tackles available, 5-star rated out of the transfer portal, which is almost unheard of, and he is a stud. You look at the defensive side of the ball, Princewell Umam one of the better edge rushers in the portal. You retain Whit Weeks at linebacker, which is very good. DJ Pickett comes in as a freshman, and he's going to ball out for them as well. They retain guys like PJ Woodland and Tamarcus Cooley in the secondary, which is huge for them. Look, we've seen it happen before where a team brings in all these mercenaries and it just hasn't panned out. But I think that these transfers, these mercenaries, are way too good of a players for it to not succeed. And I think that they're going to rack up a ton of wins. I think that they're not a lock to make the college football playoff, but I think that they're very close to it. And I think that this team's going to have a lot of success this year. At number 7 here, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, that might be a little low for Georgia, all things considered. I think that they're the best team by far on this list so far. I think you have a major jump from LSU to Georgia in my power rankings here. But you look who they brought back. Gunnar Stockton, Nate Frazier, multiple offensive linemen. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back Gabe Harris on the defensive line, which is huge. Raylan Wilson at linebacker. Elias Robinson, the 4th at corner, and KJ Bolden's one of the best safeties in the country. Look, I think that this team has the potential to go all the way because of their coaching staff. But right now, their roster, it's a very good one. It's just not an elite one. Honestly, I think that LSU's roster rivals Georgia's, maybe even a little better just when you look at the roster on paper. But Georgia is just far and away a better team than LSU right now because of Kirby Smart, because of what he's done in the past. Lane Kiffin has not done half of what Kirby Smart has done. Actually, Kirby Smart's done just a lot more than half. He's won a couple national championships to start. Don't get me started on everything else. But again, this Georgia team has the ceiling to go all the way, but right now, their roster, very good, but not an elite roster as I see it. At number 6, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. Y'all might think that this is a little bit low, but I have my reasons for it. With the offense, I think that Julian Sain is a fine quarterback. He's going to put up fantastic numbers. I don't think his play by himself will merit a Heisman-worthy campaign, although his numbers may reflect it because he has such outstanding players on the offense. Then, obviously, that being Bo Jackson at running back, the trio of wide receivers in Jeremiah Smith, Chris Henry Jr., and Brandon Inniss, and they bring back 4 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen from last year, which is all great, but I have my concerns about Julian Sain in the big moments. He looked terrible against Miami last year in the playoff. Cannot let that happen again for them to make a big run. On the defense, front 7 is a bit of a mess. They bring back Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Beau Atkinson, and Edric Houston, although Edric Houston and Beau Atkinson kind of played half the time last year. They were really just rotational pieces. Now they're going to have to be mainline starters. We'll see how that goes. They bring in James Smith through the portal. I think that was a great get for them on the interior of that defensive line. At linebacker, they lose a lot of production, but Peyton Pierce and Christian Allegro look to hold the fort down. And this is one of the main reasons why I have Ohio State lower, because of the amount of experience that they lost on the defense. And I don't see too much experience on this defense, like a couple years starting experience. Like they lost Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, Caden Curry, players like that they lost, huge impact guys, and I don't really see huge impact guys in the front 7, although Jermaine Matthews Jr. is a fantastic corner, probably a first-round draft pick. Coming into my top 5 here, I have the Miami Hurricanes at number 5, and y'all may flame me for having them ahead of Georgia, but what I see here is a championship team. Darian Mensah comes in from Duke, one of the most exciting quarterbacks in college football, and honestly, one of those guys that could end up in New York for a Heisman this year. They bring back their top 2 running backs, Mark Fletcher being the standout one for them. They bring back Malachi Toney, obviously needs no introduction. He is the second best wide receiver in college football. I almost called him the best, but we got another team coming up that's got the best. You know who it is. But they bring in a lot of guys. Again, a lot of turnover, but they bring in a lot of guys who are really good. Elijah Lofton, I really like at tight end. Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 rated player in America in this past recruiting cycle, comes in immediately going to play left tackle for them there. And On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back a ton, which is why I am so jacked up about this team. They bring back Ahmad Moten Sr. They bring in Damon Wilson, one of the best edge rushers in the cycle. Mohamed Toure comes back at linebacker. Bryce Fitzgerald as well comes back. I think that he is one of the best young emerging stars out there in the secondary. Zachariah Poyser comes back as well. And I think this team is just ready to go. They've been to the biggest stage. No game is big enough for them right now. I think that they will run away with the ACC, and I think they'll make another deep run in the playoffs. At number 4, I have the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, this may be a bit low for a team that just won the national title, but I have a reason for it, and it's the quarterback with Josh Hoover. I don't think he's going to be quite as good as Fernando Mendoza was. And again, that's very high billing because Fernando Mendoza won the freaking Heisman. I mean, that guy was incredible. Not sure if Josh Hoover's going to be quite like that, but I don't even think he needs to be for them to make another deep run at the playoffs. Their roster, again, stacked roster. They got some NIL in the building. They brought in some huge transfers like Turbo Richard from Boston College, Nick Marsh from Michigan State. They brought in some other guys as well, but they retained wide receiver Charlie Becker, one of the best in the country, brought back 3 of their starting offensive linemen, which is huge for them. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back both their nose tackles in Tariq Tucker and Mario Landino, which were huge for them in the playoffs. If you watch those playoffs, you knew they were getting pushed on the defensive line was getting pushed on the offensive line of opposing teams because of the interior, and they were able to stuff the run countless times. You watch the Bama game, parts of the Miami game, as well as other games throughout the year. Looking at the Ohio State game in the Big Ten championship game, they were able to stuff the run because of those interior guys. The linebackers, they bring back Elijah Hardy and Isaiah Jones as well. Jamari Sharp and Amari Farrell come back, and they bring in AJ Harris as well, which was huge for them. And they bring in a underrated safety in Preston Zachman. Again, this team obviously can go all the way because they have Kurt Signetti and they have a loaded roster. But I have concerns with the quarterback. Again, not major concerns, just like I don't know that he'll be able to live up to Fernando Mendoza. And Fernando Mendoza was one of the main reasons why they won the national championship game. At number 3, I have the Texas Longhorns. And listen, a lot of people like to talk about what they can't do this year. Well, I'm telling you, I think that they can make the national championship game. I think that Arch Manning can win a Heisman this year, because that's how talented Arch Manning is, and that's how talented this roster is with Steve Sarkisian. This is by far his best roster at Texas, most complete, most deep roster, all of that. I think it is this year. This year is the year for Texas. Again, Arch Manning, I think he's going to be in New York. I think he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He's going to explode on the scene and have a Heisman-worthy campaign. They bring in 2 fantastic running back transfers in Ray Leak Brown, and the name of the other guy escapes me right now. But again, 2 really good elite players at running back. Cam Coleman, a top 5 wide receiver in America, comes in from Auburn. They retain Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley. They retain linemen such as Trevor Gooseby, who's one of the best tackles in the country, and 2 other guys as well. On defense, they retain a ton, including Colin Simmons, probably the best edge rusher in America, as a lot would say. Jelani McDonald as well in the secondary. He leads the secondary. He is a guy who's really, really good, and he led the team in tackles last year. Like I said, this team is ready to go for success, and I think that they finally break through this year and win a couple playoff games. Coming in at number 2, it could be one of 2 teams. I have the Oregon Ducks here at number 2. You look at the quarterback room, the depth is insane, obviously bringing in Dylan Raiola, but we're not going to talk about him. We're talking about Dante Moore. I think he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He's that good. He's a gunslinger. He threw for over 30 touchdowns last season. He is a dog. They bring back Jordan Davison from that running back room. He's going to be elite, but I don't even know if they're going to need him because they're going to sling the ball a bunch, because you look at this wide receiver room, Decory Moore, top 5 wide receiver in the country, Jeremiah McClellan, a nice piece as well, and then Evan Stewart out of the slot coming back from injury. He is a dog. And then you look at the tight end, best tight end in the country, in my opinion, in Jamari Johnson. Second year they've had the best tight end in the country. You look at the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. They bring back a couple guys. A couple guys are going to need to step up as well. But again, I have faith in that offensive line because their staff at that position is elite. On the defensive side of the ball, they bring back pretty much everyone from the front 7, from guys like Mateo Uiagalelei and Amori Washington, Bear Alexander, Tatum Tuioli, and you look at the linebacker room with Devin Jackson, Jerry Mixon as well. They're all elite. In the secondary, you had Aaron Flowers come back, Ife Obadigwu come back, Brandon Finney as well at cornerback 1. Now, his speed isn't elite, but everything else is elite about him, and he's got elite size, speed, not speed, but he's got elite size as well at the corner spot. I think that this is the year that Oregon finally breaks through. I think that they have the potential to make the title game, and they have the potential to win the whole darn thing. Again, at number 1, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And again, I went back and forth with them, Oregon, Texas, and Indiana. At some points during the offseason, I had them all number 1. But right now, I think that Notre Dame has the most complete roster with enough splash players to really make a difference. Again, Notre Dame isn't known for splash players. They're known for hardcore, hard-nosed football. They have that, but they also have the highlight players as well. You look at CJ Carr, his really battery mate with Jordan Faison. They're going to rack up a ton of receptions and targets and yards, etc. Just between the two of them, they're both elite at what they do. Mylan Graham comes in from Ohio State. He should be an instant impact guy at wide receiver. At running back, again, very thin because they lost 2 guys to the NFL draft at that position, but Aeneas Williams is a guy who they really expect to do great things this year, and the offensive line is one of the best in America, in my opinion, when you look at all the statistics and advanced metrics. On the defensive side of the ball, this gets me excited. This gets me juiced. Their secondary, I'm going to start with them. They are elite. This is the best secondary in America, folks. They bring back Tay Johnson, Adon Schuler, Leonard Moore, and Christian Gray. Those guys have been on the team for multiple years. Leonard Moore is going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick, and they bring in DJ McKinney, who's going to be like a third corner rotational guy, and he's a starter at 99% of all the other schools in the country as he transferred in from Colorado, excuse me. You look at the defensive line, Boubacar Traore returns. He is a splash player. Bryce Young, not to be confused with the Panthers quarterback, but he is an elite player off the edge. Drake Bowen, their leading tackler from last year, comes back as well. Again, this team is elite, and that's why I have them number 1, because they have a lot of splash players. They have an elite secondary, which I think is huge in today's college football, and they have a great offense as well. Now, that concludes my top 25. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, share it around. Let's get this video up to a bunch of views, a bunch of likes, a bunch of comments, starting with you. Put your comment down below. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me hear it all. We have a ton of content coming out all summer long. If you like this video, go check out the other ones on the channel. And with that, I'm out.